enslavement to nationality. Foundation of America's wealth was built upon trafficking African peoples and their descendants, built by their forced labor and their bodies as they were bought and sold as commodities. American government at all levels allowed or participated in exploitation, abusing, terrorizing, and murdering people of African descent so that mostly white Americans could profit from the enslavement. After the war, independence, the United States built one of the largest and most profitable enslaved labor economies in the world. The government politically and financially supported enslavement. The United States adopted a national constitution that protected slavery and gave pro-slavery white Americans outsized political power of the government. African nations pre-Civil War presidents enslaved African Americans while in office, and throughout history, more than 1,700 congressmen from 37 states once enslaved black people. By 1861, almost 2% of the entire budget of the United States went to pay for expenses related to enslavement, such as enforcing fugitive slave laws. Enslavers made more than $159 million between 1820 and 1860, trafficking African Americans within the United States. Charles Ball, an enslaved man, was bought by slave traffickers in Maryland and forced to march to South Carolina. Later remembered, seriously meditated on self-destruction. Had I been at liberty to get a rope, I believe I should have hanged myself at Lancaster. I had now no hope of ever again seeing my wife and children, or revisiting the scenes of my youth. Historians have argued that many of today's financial, accounting, and management practices began among enslavers in the United States, South and Korea. In order to continually increase production profits, enslavers regularly staged public beatings and other violent acts and provided deplorable living conditions. Historians have also found evidence that enslavers raped and impregnated enslaved women and girls and profited from sexual violence by owning and selling their own children. President Thomas Jefferson, who enslaved 4 of his own children, wrote that the labor of breeding enslaved women who births a child every 2 years is as profitable as the best enslaved worker on the farm. In the census of 1860, the last census taken before the Civil War, of the about 12 million people living in 15 slave-holding states, almost 4 million were enslaved. In order to terrorize and force this enormous population to work without pay, the colonial and American governments created a different type of slavery. Unlike in the historians' call for pre-modern era slavery in America was based on the idea that race was the sole basis for long life enslavement. Children were enslaved from birth, and that people of African descent were naturally destined to be destined to be enslaved. Colonists in North America claimed and passed laws to maintain a false racial hierarchy where white people were naturally superior. Colonial laws effectively made it legal for enslavers to kill the people they enslaved. In some states, free nor enslaved African Americans could not vote or hold public office. Enslaved people could not resist a white person leave a plantation without permission or gather in large groups away from plantations. Let's take a look at this. It says the American colonial slave codes created a new type of slavery that was different than slavery which existed in pre-modern times. Babies were enslaved at birth for their entire lives and for the entire lives of their children and their children's children. These laws denied political, legal, and social rights to free the enslaved black people alike in order to more easily control enslaved people. These laws divided white people from black people by making interracial marriage a crime. And these laws survived well into the 20th century. The Supreme Court only declared the outlaw interracial marriage as unconstitutional in 1967. After the War of Independence, the American government continued to pass laws to maintain this false racial hierarchy, which treated all black people as less than human. After the Civil War, the federal government failed to meaningfully protect the rights of lives of African Americans. When Andrew Johnson became president after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, he proclaimed in 1866, "This is a country for white men, and by God, as long as I am president, it shall be a government for white men." Slave codes were reborn as black codes and then as the Jim Crow laws, segregating white Americans in every aspect of life. Although many of the laws were most prominent in the South, they reflected a national desire to reinforce racial hierarchy based on white supremacy. California. Despite California entering the Union in 1850 as a free state, its early state government supported slavery. Pro-slavery, white Southerners held a great deal of power in the state legislature, court system, and California representatives in the United States Congress. Some scholars estimate that up to 1,500 enslaved African Americans lived in California in 1852. Enslaved people trafficked to California, often worked under dangerous conditions, lived in unclean environments, and faced brutal violence. In 1852, California passed and enforced a fugitive slave law. It was harsher than the federal fugitive slave law, and this made California a more pro-slavery state than most other free states. California also outlawed non-white people from testifying in any court case involving white people. California did not ratify the 14th Amendment until 1959, which protected the equal rights of all citizens, and the 15th Amendment, which prohibited states from denying a person's right to vote on the basis of race until 1962. In italics, in the picture, Hampton, Virginia, slave town. After the Civil War, African Americans lived in large segregated refugee camps, like Slab Town, because it was now here, there was nowhere else for them to go. Hospitals, dispensaries, and military camps were unable to serve the masses and enslaved people. Black soldiers and other refugees who entered the North due to Civil War escaped and abandoned formerly enslaved people settled near or within the United Army's military camps and battlegrounds. The camps did not have adequate sanitation, nutrition, or medical care. One of every 4 African Americans who lived in the camps died. Racial terror, nationalism. After slavery, white Americans frequently aided by the government maintained the badges of slavery for carrying out violence and intimidation